Somebody hear me when I say this. America is standing at a crossroads. We are living in a time where right is being called wrong. Wrong is being celebrated as right. The very foundations that built this nation, faith, family, freedom, are being shaken. And I came here today not just to give you a lecture, but to sound the alarm. Because this is not just a political issue. This is a spiritual issue. This is not about parties. This is about principles. This is not about who's in office. This is about who's in charge of our hearts. And I believe if we don't wake up, if we don't rise up, if we don't call America back to her values, we are headed for a dangerous path, a path that leads to destruction. But I came to tell somebody that it's not too late, because whenever God's people cry out, He will heal the land. Truth is being silenced while lies are being celebrated. And this is one of the most dangerous signs of a society that has lost its way. When truth is no longer welcomed, deception becomes the norm. It does not happen overnight. It creeps in slowly until people no longer recognize the difference between light and darkness, between good and evil. What used to shock us now entertains us. What used to offend us now amuses us. The voice of truth is shouted down, ridiculed, and labeled as hateful, while falsehood is given a platform and applauded as if it were progress. When truth is silenced, people begin to live in confusion. They build their lives on shaky ground. And when the storms of life come, everything collapses. This is not just about politics. It is about the human heart. If we reject truth, we reject the very thing that sets us free. When we celebrate lies, we are celebrating our own destruction, because lies may comfort for a moment, but they eventually enslave. That is why it is critical for us to be a people who are not afraid to speak truth, even when it is unpopular, even when it costs us something. Because the moment we stop defending truth is the moment darkness takes over, and a nation that rejects truth will always find itself on the path to chaos. America has lost her moral compass, and when a nation loses its sense of right and wrong, it begins to drift aimlessly into dangerous waters. The values that once held us together, that once gave us a sense of direction, have been abandoned for convenience and personal preference. Morality is no longer seen as absolute. It is treated as something we can bend, twist, or rewrite to fit our desires. When a society detaches itself from its moral foundation, it becomes vulnerable to every wind of ideology, every passing trend, every voice that shouts the loudest. Our choices reflect this loss. What we tolerate, what we celebrate, what we teach our children. The conscience of the nation has been dulled, and we are now entertained by things we once considered shameful. When we lose our moral compass, we stop asking if something is right and start asking if something is popular or profitable. Popularity cannot guide us to righteousness, and profit cannot lead us to peace. Without a moral compass, justice becomes distorted, leadership becomes corrupt, and the people suffer. A compass points you back to true north, no matter how far you drift. But if we refuse to look at it, we will continue wandering in circles, never finding our way. Division is destroying our unity, and the more we allow it to grow, the weaker we become as a nation. We are being torn apart, not just by politics, but by race, class, ideology, and even religion. Instead of listening to one another, we shout over each other. Instead of seeking common ground, we build higher walls. This division is not just a disagreement, it is a wound that keeps getting deeper because no one wants to stop and heal it. When a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand. And when a nation is divided, it becomes vulnerable to collapse from within. Division blinds us to the humanity of the person on the other side, turning neighbors into enemies and citizens into rivals. It causes us to suspect one another, to fight one another, to cancel one another, until we forget that we actually need one another. Unity does not mean uniformity, but it does require humility, the willingness to listen, to forgive, to compromise for the greater good. When we lose unity, we lose strength, because a divided people cannot face great challenges together. Division makes us easy prey for those who seek to exploit our differences and keep us distracted from what really matters. The longer we remain divided, the more we drift from our true purpose as a nation, and the more fragile our future becomes. Comfort has replaced conviction, and that shift has left us complacent and unprepared to stand for what is right. We live in a culture that prioritizes ease over effort, pleasure over principle, and convenience over courage. People are more concerned with not being offended than with seeking what is true. We avoid hard conversation because they might make us uncomfortable. We stay silent in the face of wrong because we don't want to lose friends, followers, or favor. Conviction used to be the fire that drove people to fight for justice, to defend the vulnerable, to protect what is sacred. Now that fire has been replaced with a desire to simply be comfortable. The danger is that comfort never produces change. It only keeps us where we are. Conviction is what moves us forward, what challenges us to rise higher, what keeps us from compromising our values. Without conviction, we settle for whatever the world gives us, even if it is destroying us. A nation without conviction will always drift toward moral decay because no one is willing to endure the discomfort of standing against it. Growth requires pain, progress requires sacrifice, and truth often requires us to be uncomfortable. If we keep choosing comfort over conviction, we will lose the very things that make us strong, and by the time we wake up, it may be too late to recover what we have lost. We must return to God before it's too late, because no amount of money, power, or politics can heal a nation that has turned its back on its creator. When a people drift from God, they drift from truth, from morality, and from hope. We see the evidence all around us: broken families, rising violence, confusion about identity, corruption in leadership, and despair in our communities. These are not just social problems, they are spiritual problems, and they require a spiritual solution. Returning to God means humbling ourselves, admitting that we cannot fix this on our own, and seeking His wisdom to guide our decisions. It means calling right what He calls right, and rejecting what He calls wrong, even if it costs us popularity. When a nation repents and turns back to God, He promises to heal the land, to restore what was broken, to bless the people once again. But if we continue ignoring Him, we will face the consequences of our rebellion, not because God is cruel, but because we are choosing to walk away from his protection. The window of mercy does not stay open forever, and every day we delay, the path grows darker. This is why we must act now, why we must cry out now, why we must return now, because tomorrow is not promised and the destiny of a nation hangs in the balance.